In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, be not dismayed, for I am your God. Fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will comfort you. I will guide you. I will comfort you. I will guide you. Yes, I will protect you. I will protect you with my victorious right hand. Fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, be not dismayed, for I am your God. Tomorrow morning, my brothers, we will enter the second week of our retreat. The second week is entitled Christ the King and His Call. In order to be able to hear the call of the King, in order to be able to understand the call of the King and all that it entails, and in order to be able to respond to the call of the King in the depth of our hearts, we need to prepare. We need to rid ourselves of anything which might prevent us from hearing correctly the call, from understanding what the call entails, and then from responding to it. And so, therefore, this is a preparation for the second week. It is a preparation in order to help us to understand what the meaning of this call is, and in order to help us to understand and respond to that call. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche was standing outside a church one morning when he noticed that there were people coming out of the church after having celebrated the Sunday Eucharist. And when he saw these people, he was surprised that he saw them as people who were coming out with morose faces, with downcast faces, with faces that were saying that they were really upset about something. So he stood there and he shouted at the top of his voice, "If you are a resurrected people, why don't you look it? Why don't you act it?" So Friedrich Nietzsche was very clearly talking to these people and was quite surprised to realize that they were looking as if they had come from a funeral. They had just celebrated the resurrection of their Lord, and they seemed to appear totally without any hope of resurrection. And so he was stunned and surprised to note that they were, in a sense, coming out of the church without any kind of joy on their faces, without any kind of satisfaction on their faces, without any kind of celebration on their faces. And so this is why he began to say, if you are a resurrected people, why don't you look it? Why don't you act it? And the question is this: the people had celebrated the Sunday Eucharist. The people had celebrated the resurrection. And despite the fact that they celebrated the resurrection, they were unable to look as if they had celebrated the resurrection, as if they had celebrated a joyful event. What was the reason why they did this? What was the reason why they could not celebrate? And very clearly, they did not look as if they had celebrated the resurrection. They did not seem as if they had celebrated the resurrection because of one reason, and one reason alone, and that was fear. F-E-A-R, fear. The English word fear is from the Greek phobia. If you go to Google and you type in phobia, you will get 1,000 sites which speak about every single kind of fear possible. There is fear now of COVID and the coronavirus. There is fear now of studying online. There is fear now of teaching online. There is fear now of physical contact. There is fear of lack of physical contact. There is fear of physical distancing. There is fear of because of physical distancing. So one after the other, the fear keeps on increasing, and day by day, the fears become more and more and more. And the good news is that fear is not positive. Fear is a negative. It is an absence of something. Sickness is not positive. Sickness is simply the absence of health. And darkness is not positive. Darkness is the absence of light. And fear is not a positive. Fear is the absence of love. The opposite of love is not hate, as many people think. The opposite of love is fear. 1 John 4:18. The first letter of John, chapter 4, verse 18, says it so beautifully when he says, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and the one who fears is not perfected in love. So fear and love cannot go together because they are opposites. Just as if a person is healthy, the person cannot be sick. Just as if there is light, there cannot be darkness. So if there is love, there is no fear. Love is the antithesis of fear. Love is the opposite of fear. Where there is love, there is no fear, and perfect love casts out fear. The question, however, is that to most of us, fear seems real. I do get frightened so very often. I'm frightened of an animal. I'm frightened of an insect. I'm frightened of this person. I'm frightened of that person. I'm even frightened sometimes about myself. And so the question we need to ask is, where does this fear come from? What is the origin of my fear? In order to help us to reflect on the origin of fear, I will give the example from ancient Indian philosophy. I am walking along the road one night, coming from my work and going to my home. And even as I walk along the road, I see on the road a coiled-like object. And when I look at that object, feelings of fear arise in my heart. My heart begins to beat faster. I get palpitations. I begin to perspire. I walk as far away from the object as is possible, and I go to my home. Somehow, as I reach home, I manage to calm myself. I manage to breathe deeply. My heartbeat returns to normal. The perspiration goes away, and I am able to sleep at night. I'm coming along the same road the next morning. And on the same road, on the footpath, I see that coiled object. This time, my heartbeat is normal. This time, there is no perspiration. This time, there are no palpitations. I walk close to the object. I may even walk on the object, and I go to my place of work. And so the question is, why was it that I was afraid of the object the previous night, and I'm not afraid at all of the object in the morning? And the reason is because at night, I could not really see. At night, my sight was not as good because of the night, because of the lack of light. I could not really see. And so because I could not see correctly, I could not perceive properly because of my faulty perception, my mind began to think faultily. My thinking began to be warped. And because my thinking was faulty, because my mind entertained those thoughts, my heart, my feelings began to be faulty. In other words, it was my faulty feelings which led to my faulty thoughts, which led to my faulty feeling, my faulty perception, way of looking. And why was I unable to look correctly? Because there was no light. In the morning, I came along that same road. There is now light. And in the light, I can see correctly. My perception is correct. And because my perception is correct, and because I can see now as I ought to see, my thoughts are also correct. And because my thoughts are correct, my feelings are correct. There is no fear. So the question, therefore, is, what does this lack of light mean in real terms? Because there are times when there is external light, when the sun is shining brightly and there is external light, and yet those times also I am afraid. So is it only This external light which was not there, because of which I perceived wrongly and thought wrongly and felt wrongly? Or was it something more? And the point is, it was something more. Because if it was something, not something more, then I would never be afraid in the day when there is light, when I can see correctly. So the question is, I am unable to see correctly at times, even when it is day, even when the sun is shining, even when there is light. And so, why am I unable to see correctly when there is light? And there is one reason, and one reason alone, that I do not perceive correctly when there is light, and that reason is desire. I make my wants into my needs. The need of an individual is something which the individual cannot do without. There are very few things which we really cannot do without. Very, very few. But we keep on adding to ourselves those few, and we make it too many. And then those wants of ours, those desires of ours become our needs. And we think wrongly that we cannot do without them. That if they are taken away from us, or if we do not get them, then we cannot be happy. So we keep adding and accumulating to ourselves all of these desires, and we make them into our needs. James chapter 4, verse 2. You desire and do not have, so you kill. You covet and cannot obtain, so you wage war. So James has got it spot on by telling us where our fear is coming from. In a word, our fear comes when we convert our wants into our needs. When I think that there is something which I have to have in order for me to be happy. And the more that accumulation is, the more that desire is, the more those cravings are, the less happy I will be. The less free I will be, the more frightened I am, and the less able to make a response to the Lord who invites me. So my desire does not allow me to perceive properly, and it does not allow me to perceive people properly. It does not allow me to perceive things properly, and it does not allow me to perceive situations properly. I look at people only as a means to get what I desire. So I will pander to those people who I think can give me what I want. And this is in any kind of relationship. Relationship with a colleague, relationship with a superior, relationship with a member of a community, relationship with someone I am working with. If I need something from that person, then I look at that person as someone who can give me or hold back from me what I think I cannot do without. And then that person becomes someone to be feared. And John says, if you cannot see people, but you can see them only as a means of fulfilling your desire, of getting what you think you cannot do without, then how can you love them? The first letter of John, chapter 4, verse 20. If anyone says, I love God, and does not love his brother or sister, he or she is a liar. For you cannot love your brother or sister whom you can see and say that you love God whom you cannot see. In order to be able to love, I need to be free of my need of the person. In Mark chapter 3, verses 13 and 14, we read about Jesus going up to the mountain. And Mark says there, when Jesus went up to the mountain, he sat down, assuming the position of a teacher, and called to him not those whom he needed, no. He called to him those whom he wanted, because he wanted to love them. So he called to him those whom he wanted, not needed. If Jesus needed them, then he could not love them and they could not love him. But because he made this choice deliberately, that is the reason why he called to him those whom he wanted. If we convert, however, our wants into our needs, then we are fooling ourselves and saying to ourselves constantly that we cannot do without what we think we need, when really it is not a need. Many years ago, a group of scientists conducted an experiment with guinea pigs. The guinea pig is like a rodent used, at least in the past, for experiments before they could be tried on human beings. The first experiment was this. They built a cage and they divided that cage into two parts. And the division was by putting in the center of the cage a wire through which electric current was passing. So you could not go from one place to the other without getting a shock. They took a guinea pig, put the guinea pig on one side of the cage, and fed the guinea pig with some pellets of food. The guinea pig was content to remain in its corner, ate the food, and was quite content to remain in that corner. But after a few hours, the guinea pig felt hungry. Now they put pellets of food on the other side, where the guinea pig had to pass through the center. The guinea pig could sense that there is food on the other side. It's aware there is food on the other side. It is not so sure about the center and about the electric current passing through. So it moves towards the center to go to the other side of the cage so it can get the food. And as it came to the center of the cage, it got a shock when it touched the wire and it came back to its corner. It remained there for some time. Hunger began to gnaw once again at the stomach. So a second time, it went slowly, this time a little more tentatively, towards the center. As it reached the center, it got a shock, and again it came back to its corner. The shock this time was a little more. The pressure was a little more. So the guinea pig remained in its corner for quite some time. However, hunger was gnawing again, and it kept on feeling hungry, and it knows that there is food on the other side. It can go and get the food. The third time it went to the center, it got a shock, and it went back to its corner and remained in the corner. And after a few days, that guinea pig died of starvation. After going 3 times, it did not go again. They removed that guinea pig and they put another one. But this time, they made the guinea pig dependent on drugs. So the guinea pig was dependent on drugs. As long as the guinea pig had drugs in its system, it was quite content to remain in its corner. After a few hours, the effect of the drug died out and the craving began. The desire began. The wanting began. This time, they put drugs on the other side of the cage. This guinea pig now could sense that there are drugs there. The need, it has become now a need. And it goes to get the drug from the other side. And as it reached the center, it got a shock and it came back and remained in its corner, but not for too long, because the body is now pining for the drug. The body is now craving for the drug. And the guinea pig goes once again the center, got a shock and came back. But this guinea pig now begins to get aggressive. This guinea pig now begins to get angry. It wants the drug by any means. The shock means nothing to it. It goes the third time. It gets the shock, comes back. It goes a fourth time, fifth time, and sixth time, until the seventh time, the guinea pig was electrocuted on the wire. What is the moral of the story? What is the point I am trying to make? Like that guinea pig, there are drugs that you and I depend on. Those drugs could be something material, like a position in the society. I want to be the principal of a school or college. I want to be the superior of a community. I want to be the director of works. I want to be the treasurer of the province. I want to be the provincial. I want a material position. Or it could be psychological. I want people to think well of me. I want people to keep on clapping hands for me. I want people to keep on applauding me and saying I'm doing a fantastic job. I want the members of my community to keep on praising me because I'm really doing wonderful work. While it is not so much a problem to want to be praised, to want to be acknowledged, to want to be well thought of. These are seemingly, they are not, but seemingly okay things to want. Not for us as Jesuits, but still okay things to want. Yes, you are doing a good job. Yes, you're doing extraordinarily well. Yes, you're really pulling your weight. Yes, you are working 28 hours in a 24-hour day. Yes, all of those things are true. But to want it so much that you're willing to do anything for it, that is the problem. If that approval which I must get, if that position of superior or director of works or principal or whatever, if that becomes the end in itself, then it is my drug. Yes, you need to be acknowledged when you do a good job. You need for people to say that you're really doing well. And those things are fine. And if they come, very good. If they do not come, no problem. In the earlier talk, I had mentioned about the two responses to Jesus curing a deaf mute. And one group says, we have never seen anything like this. The other group says, he casts out demons by the prince of demons. And we saw in the next verse, Jesus does not let the praise elate him, nor does he let the criticism put him down. He is at equanimity. This is because His gaze was on what he had to do, and he regarded the reward of his action as the privilege of doing the action. So for him, there is no need to wait for somebody to clap their hands. There is no need for him to wait for somebody to pat him on the back. There is no need for him to wait for somebody to approve him. All the approval, all the claps, all the applause that he needs was already given in the fact that he could do the action, that he could make this person whole, that he could make a dumb man speak and a deaf man hear. That was enough. In the Bhagavad Gita, there is a phrase known as Nishkama Karma. Nishkama Karma is that I do not desire the fruits of the action. The fruits of the action are within the privilege that I have of doing the action. My action is already the fruit. My action is already my gain. My action is already my approval. So many of us feel so despondent at times when we are not acknowledged for the kind of work that we are doing. And we say to ourselves, we are working so hard, we are sweating, we are shedding our blood, we are doing so much, and yet nobody seems to notice. If you're on this track, then you need to watch. So the question is there something in your life? It could be a position, it could be something material that you think you cannot do without. That unless you get it, you're not going to be happy. Is there something like that? The role of a superior, the role of a director of work, or some other material thing, like the placement in a particular community, a transfer to a particular place, the being given of a particular ministry or apostolate. If there is something, then the one who can give it to you controls you. Because you, unfortunately and wrongly and even foolishly think that you cannot be happy unless you are given this position, or you cannot be happy unless you are given this ministry. As a Jesuit, we have to be versatile. Anywhere, anything, anyhow. That should be our motto. That I do not mind going anywhere. I do not mind being given any work. And I will do that work somehow or the other. That's the meaning of versatility. So if we are versatile, not only physically versatile, but also mentally, and especially mentally versatile, then no one can control us. The month of January and February in our country is our months in which there is a lot of fear in religious houses. And the reason why there is fear in religious houses is because those are the months in which the transfers will be announced. And unfortunately, we have made up our minds that we cannot be happy unless we are transferred to a particular community and unless we are given a particular ministry. Now, if that is the case, then I really think you're asking for trouble. Provincials become those individuals who can give you or who can hold back. And so you begin to fear them. You begin to get frightened of them because you have given them in their hands to hold the reins to your life. And they pull you when they want and they let you go when they want because you have allowed them. And you have allowed them, unfortunately, because your wants have become your needs. because you have convinced yourself somehow that you cannot be happy otherwise. Gautam Buddha summarized this in a threefold statement when he says, the world is full of sorrow. We look at the world around us, and yes, there is a lot of sorrow. The second is, the root of sorrow is desire, craving, making your want into your need, the root of sorrow. That means because of this, you're sorrowful. And the third, logical, the uprooting of desire is the uprooting of sorrow. So you remove desire, you're going to remove sorrow. There is no sorrow when there is no desire. So he advocates a state of desirelessness, no desire whatever. There are some who think that that is something similar to the Ignatian indifference, and I say no. The Ignatian indifference is a totally positive thing. Desirelessness can be understood as something negative. I have got no desire at all. So the no is more important in desirelessness. In indifference, I do not want, or I want this or that, both. And both will make me equally happy. So I transform, or I change what Gautam Buddha says slightly into Ignatian terms when I talk about choiceless desire. In the Christian tradition, I would say you do not have to have no desires at all, but you have to have many choices. One is what is called choiceless desire. What is choiceless desire? When I have no choices whatever. One choice and one choice alone. That means unless I get transferred to this place, I am never going to be happy. Unless I get this position, I am not going to be happy. Unless I have this companion with me, I am not going to be happy. Unless I have this laptop, unless I have that desktop, unless I have this iPhone, unless I have that iPad, I'm not going to be happy. That is what is called choiceless, no choices. And I have fooling myself. I have given myself the illusion that that is what makes me happy. The place where I am sent to, the companions I have, the things I use. And then there is what I call, and this is in my opinion, Ignatian indifference, a choice-filled desire where I have 100 choices. Let me give you my own example. When I give a retreat, as I'm doing now, to 13 Jesuits, I come to the retreat with 14 choices. Because there are 13 Jesuits, I have 14 choices. And what is my first choice? My first choice is every single Jesuit making this retreat should be transformed. My second choice is 12 Jesuits should be transformed. One, it's okay. And my third choice is 11 should be transformed. 2 are okay. And my fourth choice is 10 should be transformed. 3, if they're not, it's okay. And my 14 choices, none of those making the retreat except myself. Because I'm giving the retreat so often that I can at least be transformed. So somebody asks me, how was the retreat? Yes, fantastic. But how do you know? Because I was transformed. That's enough. It was my 14th choice, but I was transformed, and that is enough. And you will notice this is about anything and everything. The more choices you have, the freer you are. And that for me is Ignatian indifference. Ignatian indifference is freedom. that is akin to Ignatian indifference. It is freedom, not desirelessness, but desire filled. I am filled with a number of desires, a variety of choices. That is Ignatian indifference. And so, the more choices you have with regard to anything. So, for example, let us say you are in a particular community and it's time for you to be transferred because you have been in that community for a long time and it's time for you to be transferred, and the provincial has indicated to you that you're going to be transferred. Now, supposing you are a kind of person who says, I've got choice one to go to this community, choice two to go to that community, choice three to go to the other community, choice four to go to that community. Supposing already before the provincial comes, you have already four choices or even more if possible. And the provincial says, I'm sending you to this community, which is your third choice. You say, I'm ready to go. Supposing, however, you wanted to go to only one community, and you think, unfortunately, wrongly, that you would not be happy if you were transferred to another community. And the provincial says, no, I cannot send you there. I'm going to send you there. You're going to be miserable from the time he tells you that till the time you go there and after you go there and for the rest of your stay there. But the misery is brought on by you, and then you blame the provincial. The misery is brought on by you because of your foolishness, because of your choiceless desire. Supposing, however, you kept telling yourself, A, B, C, D, E. Today, management experts are talking about this. Today, 500 years after Ignatius. Plan A, plan B, plan C. When they talk about your plans, they talk about having plan A, plan B, plan C, and some talk about having plans up to Z. But this is our spirituality. This is Ignatian indifference. That I do not let anything take such a hold of me. Nothing outside of me should take a hold of me. And so basically, in a summary form, my fear stems from the fact that I perceive wrongly. I perceive wrongly because I see wrongly. And when I see wrongly, I think wrongly. My thoughts are faulty. And when my thoughts are faulty, my feelings are faulty. I begin to feel fear. The reason why I do not perceive correctly is not so much because there is no external light. The day might be very bright. The sun might be shining. Then why am I not able to see correctly? Because of my desire. What does desire mean? Desire means my conversion of my wants into my needs. What does this mean in practice? It means that I have convinced myself that I cannot be happy unless I get this thing, unless I get this position, unless I acquire this transfer, or unless this event takes place. How do I get over this? I get over this by having as many choices about anything as is possible. I enjoy a good cup of coffee every morning. And one day, I go to the kitchen, I go to the refectory, and there is no coffee powder. The one in charge has forgotten to buy coffee powder. What happens to me? If my day is going to be ruined because there was no coffee powder, I am a person who has a choiceless desire for something as simple as this. My day is ruined. Can you imagine such foolishness? But supposing already before I went to the refectory, before I went to the kitchen, I said, it is likely that there may be no coffee powder. And if there is no coffee powder, I'll have tea. I'll enjoy tea as much as coffee. And it's likely there may not even be a tea bag, there may not even be tea powder. Then what will I do? I'll have water. And supposing there is no water, my fourth choice is not to have anything. So I go to the refectory with four choices already. The first, coffee, and if it is there, not a problem. I'm happy. I enjoy the cup of coffee. If it is not there, I have tea. If it is not there, I have water. If it is not there, I come back. Now, it does not mean that I will not take action later. For example, if it means that I have got to go out and buy coffee powder, I will do that later. No problem. I'm not saying don't act. I am saying don't react. Often, we do not act, but we react. So every time and any time, if I were to go to a particular situation with 4 or 5 choices, depending on the situation, then I can never be disappointed. There is never a retreat, a seminar, a conference, or anything which I have done in which I have not felt fantastic. Why? Because I have gone to that retreat after I found out the number, I've gone with one additional choice. If there are 15, I've gone with 16 choices. If there are 30, I've gone with 31 choices. Sometimes I get my first choice. Sometimes it's the 7th choice. Sometimes it's the 31st choice. It does not matter. Now, does it mean that I will not do everything in my power to get my first choice? No. I will do everything that is possible for me. And yet, after I have done all that is required of me, after I have done everything that I could do, I still do not get my first or my second or my third, but I get my fourth choice. It does not matter. My brothers, I'm going to suggest a very, very beautiful parable, a parable that is unique to the Gospel of Mark. The Gospel of Mark has 661 verses. Out of those 661 verses, there are only 31 which are exclusive to Mark, which are only found in Mark and not in Matthew and Luke. What I'm going to share with you now is 4 of those verses found exclusively in Mark, and that's why they are so special. This is a parable which is exclusive to Mark in no other gospel. And I believe it is a parable which gives us the secret of life. In a 4-step process, the whole of life can be summarized, and Jesus, I believe, summarizes it in this 4-step process. Mark chapter 4, verses 26 to 29. Mark chapter 4, verses 26 to 29. This is how Jesus begins the parable. To what shall I compare the kingdom of God? So you notice, Jesus is not giving a simple lesson. He's giving a lesson about the kingdom, the most important lesson you could ever have about the kingdom, because the kingdom is the destination. The kingdom is where we are all moving toward. So he's giving us a lesson to where we are moving. He's giving us a lesson about life. He's giving us a lesson how we must live our lives. And he does this in a 4-step process. The first is this. He says, uses the term in Greek, anthropos. Anthropos is translated in English as man. However, now with inclusive language, we say a person. What do I mean by this? Jesus does not say a sower. Like he says in Mark chapter 4, verse 3, he says, a sower went out to sow. A sower went out to sow. Here, he uses because of the patriarchal society, he uses a man, but we can use a person. A person scatters the seed. That means by not using farmer, by not using sower, by deliberately using a person, Jesus is saying that it is not an agricultural parable. This man, the translation of anthropos, could be any person. Could be you, could be me, could be anyone. So Jesus is talking to everyone who will listen. Everyone and anyone. A person scatters the seed. First step. What does it mean to scatter the seed? Scattering the seed is a metaphor for doing everything required of you. Leave no stone unturned. Make sure that every single thing you need to do is done. Every preparation you need to make is made. That is the meaning of scattering the seed. The person scatters the seed. That means I have done everything. There is nothing that I have left undone. There is no stone that I have left unturned. The second step, because I have done all that I am required to do, because I have left no stone unturned, because I have done every single thing expected of me, the second step follows. I sleep at night. I sleep at night. That's the second step. Very simple. The teaching of Jesus was extremely simple. Sleeping at night. The third step, again, these are metaphors. The third step, because I have slept at night. And I slept at night because I did everything I was meant to do. But because I slept at night, the third step, I am awake in the day. I rise in the day. So I am awake. I am alive. I am aware. And the fourth step, the seed grows. Can you imagine something as simple but yet as deep and as profound as this to give you the secret of life? Absolute secret of life. The 4 steps: scatter the seed, sleep at night, get up in the day, the seed grows. Look at it in your life. And what you realize is this: if ever there has been a time when you have been disappointed, if ever there has been a time when you have been despondent or frustrated or upset, when things have not gone according to your plan, when things have gone awry, this is what you and I often do. This is my parable. We do not scatter the seed. That is, we do not do what we are meant to do. We leave many stones unturned. We don't push as we ought to push. The second, because of that, we are restless at night. We have insomnia. We cannot sleep. We need pills in order to sleep. We need external medication to sleep. And because we have not slept, we are sleepy in the day. When we should be awake, we are sleepy. And the fourth, the seed does not grow. So we do not scatter the seed. We are awake at night. We are sleepy in the day, and the seed has not grown. However, if we follow what Jesus says, we scatter the seed. We sleep at night. We get up in the day and the seed grows. So this is what I'm saying when I talk about getting your first choice. If for some reason, after doing everything that you are required to do, after you have left no stone unturned, after you have really put all your weight behind something, if for whatever reason the result is not as you would expect, it doesn't matter. My second choice, my third choice, my fourth choice then comes into play. So in this retreat, if I do not get my first choice, it doesn't matter, because I know I have done everything I am required to do. I check my phone to see if my phone is charged. I check my laptop. Is my laptop charged? And even if it is charged, I will take my external connection. So just in case something happens, I've got my external connection. I take the external connection of my phone. If something happens, I've got the external connection. So I make all the preparations. I don't say, I'll just take the laptop and I'll take the phone. It doesn't matter. It will work. And then I reach on top on the second floor and I find the laptop has got only 10 minutes left of life and I've just begun the mass. Now what do? I have to interrupt the mass? No, but if I've taken my extension cord, I just put my extension cord and I put it back to the laptop. This is what I'm saying by saying do everything. So it's a very practical parable. It applies to you and to me in every single aspect of our lives. Scatter, sweep, rise, growth. This is my 4-step process. Scatter, sleep, rise, growth. How much simpler could life be? And you notice how complicated we have made life, how difficult we have made life, how challenging we have made life for no rhyme or reason, for things which are not real. I'm also going to suggest to you, brothers, 2 more small things now. And the first is a text from Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 to 13. Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 to 13. These verses, 3 verses, 11, 12, and 13, I believe are Paul's secret to a happy life. So Paul in these 3 verses gives us his secret to a happy life. And I would like to believe, which I will explain the day after tomorrow, I would like to believe there's a sort of corollary, there's a sort of explanation, there's a sort of addition to what Jesus says in the parable of the seed growing secretly. Scatter, sweep, rise, growth, something similar to what Paul is saying in these verses. I don't know what to explain it to you now. I want you to read it for yourself and to make sense of it for yourself. I will talk about it the day after tomorrow at the Eucharist. But the second and last thing that I want to do today is to give you to do a spiritual exercise today. And the spiritual exercise is once again in a 3-step process, which I hope and I also believe will help you to get rid of all of those sediments of anger, of jealousy, of envy, of frustration, of anything that is negative. Once again, when I use the word anger management, anger is only a metaphor for any other negative feeling that you might have. It could be jealousy management, it could be frustration management, it could be upset management, it could be despondency management, it could be any of these terms which are negative. And it is a 3-step process. The first step in this 3-step process is the person made me angry. And the person could be your companion, Could be a member of your community, could be somebody whom you worked with, could be somebody whom you helped. The person made me angry. And I stop you and ask you, why did the person make you angry? And I'm taking one example. I'll take a couple of examples. I helped the person with the admission into our college. And the person never even said one word of thanks. The person never gave me even a call to tell me that they got the admission for their son or daughter. I see. So it's not the person, but the fact that the person did not respond to you, did not inform you, did not keep you abreast of what was happening. Yeah. So really, it's not the person, but the non-action. In this case, is the non-action of the person or the non-communication of the person. And then I say, that's good. If you can already jump from the person to this non-communication made you angry, not the person, but the non-communication, good. The third is the jump I want you to make, namely, it was not the person, it was not the non-communication, but it was your expectation that the person would communicate. And you would say to me, but is it not natural? I should say, no. It's you think natural. You think it's natural, but it's not. If it was natural, the person would have communicated. So who asked you to expect that the person would inform you and thank you and be effusive in their praise? Who asked you to do that? You did it, and so now you're upset. Does it mean that when the person calls, you will not tell him or her that they should have informed you? No, it doesn't mean that. But it means that you are not going to be angry or upset or frustrated because that person did not call. And you will be if, unfortunately, you expect them to call. So don't expect them to call. My brothers, you and I know that you have been principals. I know some of you. You have been directors of works. You have been a number of positions in your province. And I'm sure I can say every single one of you has helped minimum 10,000 people in your ministry. Minimum. What you can do is just count percentage-wise and let me know if I'm right. Percentage-wise, the number of people who came back to say thank you, the number of people who acknowledge that you helped them, I challenge you, my brothers, I challenge you, it will be less than 3%. If it is 10,000 people, 3% is 300. Count and see. If you can name me 300, I will be very happy. Less than 3%. So what are you talking about? You see what I mean? So be realistic, be real. Less than 3% would have come to thank you. So the first step is, the person made me angry. The second, the words he spoke or the actions he performed, or sometimes that he did not speak and did not act. Third, no, it was not the person. It was not his words and actions. It was not that he did not speak or act. It was my expectation of him or her to speak or act in a particular way. This member of my community made me angry. I'm angry with this guy in my community. Why? Because he always serves most at the table. He will serve and leave almost nothing for others. So you're not angry with him. You're angry with his action of taking almost everything and leaving nothing for others. Yes, I'm angry with the action. Third, you're angry not with the action. You're angry because you decided to get angry. There are others in the community who are not angry. How do you explain that? Now, Does it mean that you don't take action against this guy who is not concerned about others? No, it does not mean that. Either you talk with him. If you're the superior, you can talk with him, you can converse with him, or you can tell him, please come after the others have served. Make some decision like that, but no need to get angry. Now, Roman, remember this. I'm not saying do not take action. Action must always be taken. What I'm saying is do not get angry and not take action. Secondly, do not take action when you're angry, because very often it will not be the best action. Ignatius very, very prudently tells us that we must avoid making important decisions, and I would say not only important decisions, but any decision when you are upset or when you're excited. That is not the time. Be at peace, be calm, and then you make your decisions. And so, my brothers, what I would like you to do today is to go through this 3-step process, namely, the person made me angry. No, the words or actions. Sometimes the non-communication or non-action of the person made me angry. No, my expectation or my reaction to the person's action or non-action, that is what made me angry. So I change my reaction, and that I am in control of. I am in charge of. I change my reaction, which does not mean I don't take action. I take action, whatever action is possible, I take it, but I don't get angry. I would like to pray, my brothers, that this 3-step exercise will help in a sort of catharsis, a sort of cleansing of your being, so that when we enter into the second week tomorrow, your hearts and your minds are light, and we can really hear the call of the King. We can understand his words, and we can respond in freedom. Fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, be not dismayed, for I am your God. Fear not, for I am with you. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, be not dismayed, for I am your God. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.